Hey everyone, Saturday Evening Chats episode 140, and we are doing Can I Restore My Rights in New York? And first in this evening was Krabby Turtle, followed by Mr. Kingpin. Let me swap over. After Kingpin, we had Tactical Fud, G-Webs, and Mike White 2A Advocacy. So, thanks everyone for showing up.
In a world of uncertainty and turmoil, one man stands alone, along with his faithful sidekick. A man who entertains and educates the masses weekly, 70% of the time. Born out of the dusty plains of Washington State, now from the coastal forests of Oregon. The man, the myth, the man, G23.
So we have MacMan 039 Reloading, Mr. CB, a fellow Oregonian, and Miss Gunpowder Beauty, who has joined us. So welcome everyone, and let's get into the topic at hand. So we'll share the screen. Mr. Viejo, Walter Bunning is out there. Welcome. So we're going to discuss can I restore my rights in New York? And this is out of newyorkcourts.gov. So it says getting rights back. There are a number of laws and rules that bar people convicted of certain jobs and getting certain licenses or having access to certain benefits like public housing. This is why it is important to understand the collateral consequences of your criminal conviction when you I don't know why that's a complete grammar issue. It says why when you are plea guilt bargaining, it should be when you are, I guess, or sentenced. There are certain certificates called Certificate of Relief from Civil Disabilities and Certificate of Good Conduct that can remove the consequences. The certificates can get rights back that you lost because of your conviction. If you get one of these certificates, you won't be automatically disqualified for a particular job or license. If you have if you have a certificate when you apply for a job or occupational license, the employer or licensing agency must assume that you are rehabilitated unless there is something to say otherwise. So, now, when you go through some of these, it says learn how to apply for a certificate of relief from civil disabilities if you have been convicted of any number of misdemeanors but not more than one felony. So you have to sit there and go through and figure out certificate of good conduct, read how to apply for a CGC. If you were convicted of 2 or more felonies or to apply for a public office job. Um, Sealed records after 10 years. Sealed records, drug-related crime. Sex offender petition for relief or modification. And relief from federal firearms disabilities in guardianship cases. So they have a lot of reasons why they can take your damn rights in New York. So I'm I've got the live chat pulled up on my cell phone, so I can be reading and kind of paying attention to the live chat while I am screen sharing, because when you do the screen share on StreamYard, it'll pop you over to the screen you're sharing, and you don't see the comments. So we'll start with the first way to go about it, and it says a certificate of relief from disabilities is a way to remove certain collateral consequences of a criminal conviction. Having a CRD can remove bars to applying for jobs, licenses, public housing. So, like, you can't get Section 8 or any of the low income housing if you have a criminal record in New York. I know other states, it all depends on what kind of criminal record you have, if you can have public housing, or if you're going to have to go through and get that taken care of. And more. If you are applying for and received a CRD, you will have the right to apply just like someone without a conviction, but having a CRD is not a guarantee that your application will be granted. And even if you have a CRD, you still have to say that you have a criminal conviction when you fill out a job application. If it has been more than 10 years since you were convicted of a crime, you may be able to ask the court to seal your record. Visit sealed records after 10 years. So, requirements. You are eligible to get a CRD if you have been convicted of any number of misdemeanors or violations, but have not been convicted of more than one felony. 2 or more felony convictions in the same court on the same day are counted as one felony for the CRD. If you have been convicted of 2 or more felonies, not at the same time, or if you want to apply for a public office job, you can't apply for a CRD, but you may be able to get a certificate of good conduct. See certificate of good conduct. You need a separate CRD for each conviction. If you are not sure about your criminal history, visit criminal records and sealing to learn more. So we have Lee out there from Thoughts of an Old Soldier. What's going on? We have Keith Gregory out there. So what's going on, guys? When and where to apply. At sentencing, you can apply for a CRD. At sentencing, this can be done by asking the judge for a CRD. If you are going to lose an employment license or public housing because of your conviction, it is important to ask for a CRD at sentencing. After sentencing, you can apply anytime after sentencing for a CRD, except you can't apply while you are in a state prison after sentencing. You apply to the court that sentenced you as long as your conviction did not result in state prison time. C. Applying for applying to court for a certificate of relief of disabilities after state prison. If you serve time in a state prison and have been released, you apply to the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision to get a CRD. So, um, that's a hell of a lot of things you have to think about. Um, and that doesn't even give you your rights back. So um, we'll go down here to relief from federal firearms disabilities. That one doesn't, that's just for guardianship. Trying to remember. So maybe it's good conduct. I read these for a while, and then I missed a couple of weeks. So yeah, I think this is the one I want. So, Certificate of Good Conduct. A Certificate of Good Conduct, CGC, gives you a legal finding that you are reformed after a conviction. The CGC removes some of the collateral consequences of a criminal conviction. The CGC allows you to apply for certain jobs, licenses, public office, housing, or other rights that you lost when you were convicted. But having a CGC is not a guarantee that your application will be granted. And even if you have a CGC, you still have to say that you have a criminal conviction when you fill out an application. So everything that applied to the first applies to this. Um, you are eligible to apply for a CGC if you have been convicted of 2 or more separate felonies, or if you want a job that is public office. For public office jobs, it doesn't matter how many convictions you have, you need a CGC. When counting felony convictions, federal and out-of-state charges count too. If you are not sure about your criminal history, visit criminal records to learn more. If you have been convicted of less than 2 felonies, visit Certificate of Relief. And then it says 1 CGC will cover all your felony and misdemeanor convictions. So let's see. What's going on, Ron Wayne? So it says you must wait before you can apply for a CGC. You must show that you have completed a period of good conduct in the community. If you have been convicted of an A or B felony, you must wait 5 years before getting a CGC. If your most serious conviction is a C or D or E felony, you must wait 3 years before getting a CGC. If you only have been convicted of misdemeanors, you must wait 1 year before getting a CGC. The waiting period starts from the last time you got out of prison, onto parole, or maxed out, or the date of the last conviction if you didn't get state prison time, whichever was last. So that covers that part. Let's go sealed records after 10. Trying to find the one that talks about restoring your firearms rights. Um, no, that one might just. So down, gotta open that in a different window. Oh, lovely. So we'll stop screen sharing that one. And go to this screen share. Zoom in a little bit to make it easier for everybody. And I may have gone a little too big. And that one might still be a little. So, yeah, it says, so you have to go to relief from Federal Firearms Disabilities Program. So Part 148 point, and then it has all these different, talks about the application. This rule establishes a relief from disabilities program as required by federal law for those individuals who have had guardians appointed for them and who would otherwise be prohibited from purchasing firearms because their names have been transmitted to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System database in accordance with state and federal law. So, talks about eligible individual is a person who at any time has had a guardian appointed to him or her pursuant to any provision of state law based on a determination that, as a result of marked subnormal intelligence, mental illness, incapacity, condition, or disease, he or she lacks the mental capacity to contract or manage his or her own affairs. Administrative judge shall mean the administrative judge of each judicial district or the administrative judge of Nassau County or Suffolk County. And then a petition for relief from federal or from firearms disability must be made by an eligible individual in writing to the administrative judge of the district or county where the court that appointed. I'm trying to find where. So this is all just discussing people that have had their for mental illness part. Let me see if I can get down to where they discuss. Yeah, so that part's all just about the mental illness. So I am not finding. I had it earlier. Everything starts to go wrong when you haven't been doing this in a while. Um, okay, let me pull up a different website. Um, and we can always start screen sharing and read this one. New York Outcast is out there. No, I have not remembered how to do a show. Um, talks about a felony conviction can land you in prison, slap you with hefty fine, and keep you on probation after your prison sentence is over. However, once your debt to society is paid and you are out of prison, your fine is paid off, and your probation is over, you could still find yourself paying for your crime, of course. So it talks about what rights does a felon lose? Voting, rights to bear arms, certain professional state license, occupational restrictions, disbarment, traveling to other countries, ability to be employed by the federal government, ability to do business with the government, jury service, ability to obtain federal licenses, ability to qualify for public social benefits, parental rights, ability. So let's see if these guys are going to talk about um, restoring a federal civil right. There is no federal law in place for restoring a federal felon's civil rights. This means that in a case as a person seeking to own a firearm after a federal conviction, they have no recourse but to attempt to regain the firearm privilege via presidential pardon. They may also go through the government administrative restoration process, which you're pretty much guaranteed you have like 0.03% chance that you're gonna like win that. Probably, I could be wrong, but so restoration of civil rights in New York. Several laws provide for the restoration of a felon's civil rights in New York. The right to vote is a major concern for most Americans in New York. That right is stripped when a person is convicted of a felony. That happens in every state. And then they go through and talk about everything that I've just got done talking about. And they don't actually tell you the other major rights that is lost by felons is the right to bear arms. They are not allowed to legally possess and buy firearms of any kind. It is written into many of the criminal laws of the state as a part of the sentence. The only way to restore this and other civil rights is usually via a pardon from the governor of the state. A felon may also seek to have his or her rights restored via a certificate of relief from disabilities or good conduct. Otherwise, the ban prohibiting the purchase or possessing a firearm remains indefinitely. So, um, even though when I was reading the other stuff, they didn't tell you that, but it looks like if you can either get a what's it the certificate of relief from disabilities or good conduct, you can potentially be able to get your rights restored in New York. Um, Probably trying to get a governor's pardon is going to be almost slim to none. Um, so that is what we figured out about New York. So New York makes it somewhat hard. Um, if you're just a private person trying to figure this out. Um, and so if you if you know what you're doing when you get caught, it looks like the best way is to just, hey, yeah, I'm guilty, but you know, I want this, CRD, or New York Outcast is probably impossible unless you've got connections. Yeah, you know, and that's the thing is a lot of states where um, it requires like a governor's pardon. That's not an easy way. So being able to get it back through the courts um, sometimes is the easier way of going about it. Um, Again, I have talked about on many of these. I had to do it in Washington State, and so Washington State actually um, makes it super easy. All you have to do, is you wait. You have to wait your certain amount of time. Make sure your fines are paid, um, and then file the papers with the court that you were convicted. In the county that you were convicted. Um, and pretty much as long as you have no criminal, record after, you haven't done anything wrong from the time you caught your felony, and everything, then the judge, signs off and you've got your rights back. Now, you do have to make sure that um, when, like, after the judge signs off and then it goes to the records, your county records, um, you have to make sure that they um, send that off to the federal government. Because I know people in Washington who, yeah, they have that letter from the judge that says, "Oh yeah, you're good to own firearms," and um, so they go and buy a firearm. Well, then if they go out of state, now they get caught, like in Oregon, they're still a convicted felon, and so they're looking at um, a felon in possession charge, and so even then they have to say, "Hey, look, I've got all my papers and everything," but you still got to go fight through court, um, and everything. So um, I keep my a copy of my um, court order on my phone. It's in my so that I can pull that up and say, "Hey, look, here's all my papers." because um, when I was buying firearms for when I until about a year and a half ago, every time I would go to purchase a firearm, I was being delayed or denied, and so in Oregon, even before the they changed everything on the 4473, saying that if you're delayed or denied, they have to forward that on to law enforcement, and then you'd get contacted. Oregon was doing that already. Um, if you were delayed or denied in Oregon, the state police would contact you, and so you'd have to make sure you had your papers. Look, hey, look, I've got my papers. I'm staying out of Auschwitz. Sorry, So, um, yeah. Um, so I don't know. Is there's anybody who has questions out there or anything? If not, maybe we'll throw the link out and kind of BS for a little bit. Um, Otherwise, we'll wrap this up and call it a night after about 35 minutes. So, um, so let me throw this out in the crowd real quick. So the link is out there if you guys want to, if anyone wants to jump in, we'll discuss this a little bit. Otherwise, I am going to wrap this up. Um, I know this isn't a real big topic that a lot of people really get into because of the fact if you've never lost your rights or you don't know anyone that's lost your rights that have lost their rights, then it's like who really cares? But I'm doing this to kind of highlight and show that there is a way to come back from it, and hopefully SCOTUS picks up and decides to rule on the felon in possession challenge that's already in effect, and then possibly this all becomes a moot point of me doing these videos. I am going to check one thing. I did throw a poll out there, so we'll see what the next state possibly could be, and then we'll probably call this a night. So let's see what kind of so right now it looks like Illinois is way out in the lead at 43%. Missouri is in second place at 29%, and New England or Nebraska and Kansas are tied at 14%. So we will end that, and it looks like Illinois will be our next topic. So yeah, no problem, Rob. Um, so again, I want to thank everyone for swinging by, and we will play the outro.